Ladies and gentlemen, we are well into election season and things are heating up at all levels. Welcome to a special edition of Conexión Media Group's Making Connections interview show. In the next several days, we are going to be recording interviews with several candidates here in the area of the Emerald Coast. And this morning, we are going to start with Mr. David Schmidt. David is running for the Okaloosa County School Board District 2, and he is doing us the honor of being our first interview for this election season. Thank you very much for being with us, David, on this morning. How's it going?
Thank you, David, and thank you for making these connections. It's going well. We're today is July the 20th. Election day is August the 20th, so we're within a month. As we speak, we have absentee ballots on people's dining room tables. We have early voting that starts August the 10th. So we're here. We're in it. It's been a great almost a year and a half of since I pre-filed and qualified in June for this seat. It's a very important time in local elections, more specifically the Okaloosa County School Board District 2, and I'm very excited and encouraged about it.
I know it takes a lot of work, and obviously you're going to be a very busy man, especially here in the last 2 to 3 weeks or so before the 4 weeks actually before actually people go out there and vote on the 20th of August. David, for those that may not know who you are, obviously you are a very well-known community leader here in the area. I know a lot of the great things that you do. Tell us a little bit more about David Schmidt for those people that have not met you or know about you.
Absolutely. I was born in Pensacola in 1984. My family and I moved when I was 2 years old to Destin in '86. We lived there in about sixth grade. We moved over to Fort Walton Beach in the Kenwood area, and then went on to Fort Walton Beach High School, graduated from Fort Walton Beach High School, got my associate's degree from, at the time, Okaloosa Walton Community College, and
That's right.
finished my bachelor's in communications at the University of West Florida, go Argonauts, and finally got my master's in educational leadership. I'm married to Shannon Lindsay Schmidt. She's a product of Crestview High School, and we met. She was a cheerleader at Okaloosa Walton Community College. And I was enjoying going to seeing my friends play on the basketball team while there, and really liked Shannon. And the good Lord allowed us to, we worked together in a summertime job and got a chance to meet her a little bit more. And fast forward, now we're blessed to be married for now 13 years, just coming on 13 years in September, where we have 5 kids, Neelan, Bennett, Malachi, Ramsey, and Sawyer, and our dog Layla. And so that's a little bit about my family background. Also too have an older brother, younger brother, and a sister. They all have their families. Very blessed. They all live here locally.
Live locally, huh?
Yeah, between Destin and Fort Walton, my family lives still here locally. And then, like I said, my wife's family in Crestview. So we're very fortunate. I'm in the middle of a really good book right now by Dr. Ben Carson called The Perilous Fight. And it just talks about the importance and the value of having the family unit, having the village. And, he kind of compares back in the War of 1812 when the White House was under fire and our country was young and at risk of losing our country. He makes a very convincing argument in the book about the importance of our family unit and our family unit staying together in the village that I'm very fortunate to have and blessed to have here in Okaloosa County. Started teaching, I got into teaching, David, because I wanted to coach basketball. I was a basketball player, enjoyed the game of basketball. So I started as a long-term sub at Fort Walton Beach High School. And I was a chemistry teacher for a young lady that unfortunately had some breast cancer, and in January had to step aside. So Charlene Couvion called me up to be a long-term sub. I was learning the chemistry lesson from the next door classroom chemistry teacher after school. I would learn that
Yeah.
chemistry lesson after school, and then the next day teach that chemistry lesson to the ninth and 10th graders at Fort Walton Beach High School. And then after that semester, got hired by Tommy Britt to be a math teacher at Destin Middle School. And fast forward now, I've had 10 years in educational leadership, where I've been the dropout prevention at risk principal for the last 10 years between Okaloosa Academy and Walton Academy. So serving in all forms and all levels of education, as well as I've submitted my irrevocable letter of resignation on city council, but also submitted my letter of resignation. But more clearly, I just didn't renew my contract to be the principal at Okaloosa Academy effective July 1 because my wife and I wanted to make this campaign from now until August the 20th our full-time responsibility. So didn't renew my contract as a principal after 10 years. My irrevocable letter of resignation on the Fort Walton Beach City Council effective November. And in that month, David, it will be 7 years and 7 months to the day as far as being in public service in the city of Fort Walton Beach. We're very excited about the vibrancy and the opportunities to create a vibrancy so that our kids age group and our grandkids and that kind of talent can either stay in this community or come back and pour into this community. I'm honored to be here, David, and I really appreciate you having this conversation.
Yeah, so a lot of great experience in the educational side of the house, obviously, and I know you've also had some great accomplishments with other entities, the Shoe Foundation, and others that care for the youth. What motivated you to run for the school board?
Yeah, so finishing up my second term in public service, the city of Fort Walton Beach. My wife and I, she really knows how much I enjoy public service. I really enjoy the local public service, and praise God for folks like Representative Maney and others that are convicted to do it at the state, and some that do it at the national level. But I'm convicted and really enjoy the public service at the local city and county level. So as I'm getting ready to approach my term limits, March of 2025 would be completed my second term. I'd be done. About a year and a half ago, we were really looking into what would be next in public service and want to continue that. So what motivated me to run, got 5 kids. And my oldest is getting ready to go into 6th grade. My youngest is 3, and really want to continue the momentum that this community is having in being a very vibrant community, a community where we can increase the opportunities for young professionals and professionals of all age groups to have more higher skilled and higher wage jobs, so that our kids, our grandkids, our family, after they go off into the military, after they go off to college, or they choose to stay here, will have more opportunities so that they can have more affordable places to live. They can have more opportunities to sow back into the community that raised them. What motivated me to run, my experience in education and educational leadership, combined with my experience as being a parent and my experience in public service. I want to take those learning lessons. And what I mean by learning lessons, I've had some victories and I've had some scrapes on my knee and some challenges, but taking all of that and learning from it to be the number 1 county, the number 1 school district, David, in the country in career readiness. The data is showing us that the class of 2022, 3% of students are graduating and going off into a technical college. I'm very convicted about shifting that needle and getting those opportunities, because there's something to be said about the experience in the educational marketplace, specifically working with the dropout prevention at risk community, where there's so much talent that community has. Now, outside of that niche of education, whether you're a valedictorian at any high school or you're not at the at-risk dropout prevention school, there's also talent in that demographic of students as well. But there's so much opportunity through the education system and the experience that I have of motivating not only students, but staff to have a common goal of really doubling down on the marketable skill sets for all of our students. It motivates me to run because seeing that happen over the past 10 years and seeing those students that get motivated by some of the, dual enrollment or by going to the technical college or some of the programs that we've had I have to do a quick shout out to, Dr. Paul Shu and Amanda Negron at the Shu Institute, where, some of our students that have been on their drone team, that have had their own drone team and competed against other students across the county, and the students that have hope and that say, I can do that. I can do that skill set. And they can go out and be marketable in the community. Also, too, want to give a shout out to Food for Thought. If you're not familiar, your listening audience is not familiar with Food for Thought. Tiffany Nelson and that team do a phenomenal job at Food for Thought. They do a lot of things, but more specifically, our students have been impacted by the Full Circle Kitchen. The Full Circle Kitchen is an environment where students go to learn how to cook. To not only better their soft skills of possibly going into that industry in hospitality, but also too to be more self-sufficient from a health perspective as well as a financial perspective, because it's not always the cheapest way to live is going out to eat all the time. As much as I love my convenience and going out to eat, but those are the things that motivate me, David. Seeing those students' lives change and seeing those the generations over time that will change. I have to believe when we shift that needle from 3% to more students going into those vocational colleges and going into those vocational programs to give 100% of students a marketable skill set.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think, that's one of the things that occurred in the last several years or couple of decades or whatever the case may be, that they went away from, teaching or exposing kids to vocational kind of things. The homemade, I remember taking homemaking class and learn how to cook, things like that, keep a home, financial plan, financial education type of things. Those kind of things, money was not putting into them. Kids were not being exposed to, we're treating like everybody should be going to a college for an academic or a degree of some sort. When there are kids that are just not they maybe just don't want to go to college and get an academic degree. They are good at, with their hands, and maybe a vocational kind of career is better for them. And so exposing them, putting some money into those optional things that exist out there is such an important thing that I hope all school districts, and especially those local ones, are considering feeding more and providing more opportunities for the kids to at least get exposed to those things and find what they're good at,
That's
which
it.
is what we're trying to do as young
And
people, obviously.
And David, if I can
Yeah.
kind of add to that, what you just said, we live in a very unique community. And let me kind of unpack that for a little bit. There is some major federal installations, some high performing bases that are in our community that brings a certain culture, as well as to our non-military community, whether it's on the north end agriculture, south end hospitality, fishing, and the central end being a hybrid of many things. We live in a unique community where, I was at the change of command the other day from the 96 Test Wing, and just kind of indulging in that ceremony and seeing the new leadership and just looking around and realizing that for many, many decades, this isn't anything new, but just taking that moment to reflect that in many, many decades, we have retired brigadier generals, retired lieutenant colonels, and then their sons and grandsons and great granddaughters and daughters that are inside of our school systems, inside of our community, that level of leadership that not every single county, not every single state has that benefit of being adjacent to so many, the Air Force Research Laboratory, AFSOC, your 6th Training Battalion, Army Rangers, your 7th Group, and the list goes on and on. But having that in our community mixed with our non-military community, I really do believe we can use that to continue to leverage hope in manufacturing in the education system, marketable skill sets for our students to go out to the marketplace to do amazing things. Inside of our school, the last few years, we've required all of our high school students, not just the seniors, but all of our high school students to take a Dave Ramsey financial literacy education program. It's a semester long. And, the average college graduate, David, is unfortunately graduating with about $50,000 of student loan debt. The data is also showing us about 1 of 4 students are actually completing a college diploma that went off into college. Only about half the students are going into college, but of those half of students that are going into college, only half of those are
Only
finishing
half are completing it. Yep.
for completing it. And if we really dive into the data, David, of the ones who are actually completing it, marketable skill sets can be questioned, and a lot of great things are going through that. But like, for an example, my wife is an occupational therapist. She knew from the very beginning she had to go a very traditional college path. Okay. But there's many other job categories and many other skills that our industries need, as well as our dining rooms need, our families need other job categories that don't take that traditional college path. It's much more inexpensive on the front end, as well as the return on the investment on the back end of getting in the marketplace with your cybersecurity certificate, with your artificial intelligence certificate, with your welding, with your nursing. The list goes on and on, but continuing to double down this unique community that we live in of manufacturing marketable skill sets for 100% of our students. So they don't go off into some of those traditional paths, not for sure what they're trying to procure, graduate with an average, if they do graduating with average of $50,000 of student loan debt and learning some of these concerning things that are going on to our college campuses. It's time that we continue to double down on moving that needle from 3% to much higher of our students graduating and going to a technical college or the Northwest Florida State College with the vocational programs. We have great programs in Crestview with the FAMU Pharmacy, local Troy institutions. The list goes on and on. University of West Florida, but very excited about that change that we can make in the educational marketplace. The school district is doing amazing things currently inside of the career technical and education. I don't want to move forward, David, on another topic without highlighting the progress that April Branscombe and the superintendent's leadership and the school board's leadership over the past few years have really accelerated, or even longer accelerated, that career technical and education. But I want to be that voice. I want to be that representation that continues that momentum, but double downs on that to accelerate even more the access to more marketable skill sets.
Three, or you can name one or two if you want to, biggest challenges that are facing the district in your opinion, and which one of those would be your highest priority?
Okay, so the three challenges that come off very quickly off the top of the head, I think staffing, I think funding, and facilities. Staffing, funding, and facilities. And if I can unpack each one of those, David, or do we want to move on?
Go ahead. No, okay. Go ahead and give us a couple of examples of your concerns with those three items, and then tell us which one you may want to focus on, even though you're going to work on all of them. Correct.
Okay, so staffing and funding also to kind of go in together. So staffing, we have, and this is not just a county-wide issue. This is a industry-wide issue, both state and nationally throughout education. Education, very similar to public safety and healthcare, can be very challenging to solicit and recruit and procure human resource and talent to staff our schools. But staffing, whether it's the mental health providers, whether it's the ELL staffing specialists, whether it's the bus drivers, whether it's the guidance counselors, whether it's the assistant principals and principals, whether it's the teachers, the parapros, the staffing specialists, we are doing as much as we possibly can to try to pull all of those job categories together to make the most of it. But the days are gone where, when I first got in education, if you wanted to call a substitute teacher to get a substitute teacher inside of your classroom, you hit a button and it called thousands of subs, and within an hour or two, you had a substitute filled in. Those days are gone. So we got to be creative as far as staffing goes. And I want to propose some things as far as being creative. Again, funding. Funding is a piece of the staffing. We have to continue to be more creative in our budget of getting our paraprofessionals, our staffing specialists, our teachers, all job categories in a comparable rate with our neighbors and our friends to the east of us in Walton County, as well as that is a concern that if we don't get our teachers pay, our parapros pay, bus drivers pay, those pays up to our neighboring counties pay, we're going to have some talent leave Okaloosa County to go to those counties and educate over there because of the pay being higher. So continuing to compete with our friends from Walton County, some great leadership over there with Superintendent Russell Hughes and his team, and Dr. Hawthorne and Crystal Apple. Those folks in Walton County are doing great, but we in Okaloosa County need to continue to compete from a pay scale to pay our talent, to pay our teachers comparable just as much as they're paying theirs. So staffing, as well as too with staffing, supporting staff or continuing to support staff. I know our school district and our superintendent would continue to say that staff is being supported, but I want to be that alternative board member, that person who's coming with some experience in some alternative environments at the at-risk dropout prevention environments, where we can try some creative ways to support staff so that we can keep staff, retain staff inside of our job categories, as well as solicit and recruit new staff. Here's some of the proposals, David. One, we don't allow cell phones on our campus. We students come through, they put their cell phones inside of essentially it's a toolbox that gets locked up, and they get that phone back when they check out or at the end of the day during dismissal. This creates an environment on our campuses, whether it's in the cafeteria, whether it's out at PE, whether it's in the hallway, but especially inside the classroom, where the last thing our staff, the last thing our teachers, last thing that our administrators, the last thing that our mental health providers need to do is compete with the student in getting the distraction off of their cell phone.
Yes, yeah.
It also back to career readiness and being the number one county in career readiness, David. We have to train up our students the way they should go. So specifically the cell phone, as our young professionals graduate high school, graduate college, graduate the technical college, and go into the workforce, having that self-control of, if you're on the job site scrolling through your news feed, you're on the job site with your hoodie on, with your cell phone in front of you and your earbuds on, you're not going to last long on that work.
That's right, exactly.
Team. But also
using the time,
supporting our staff so that we can maintain a certain culture on our campuses. There already is a school board policy in our Okaloosa County School District that talks about the cell phone usage, but I want to be that support with our school board and that support with our parents and with our staff to help enforce that, doing some things that we've done over the years in the dropout prevention.
Right. And I'm sure you get the full support of all teachers on that.
All right. So that's one proposal. So from staffing, as well as to funding. Let's dive into that. Funding is something that's going to be, let's dive into the weeds a little bit. The COVID money that came, okay, that is expired. That is no longer being able to use inside of our school districts. A lot of job categories was tied to some of those fundings and some of the ESSER and some of the funds that came down from the federal level to our states and to our school districts. That mental health providers, some dean of students, teachers on special assignments, some paraprofessionals that were tied to that COVID money. That money is gone, which essentially means some of those job categories are no longer funded. So the level of services that were already on our campus, you can make an argument that we needed more support, but now because of some of that funding gone, there's even less support and level of support on our schools. So we're going to have to get really creative with our budget and make some very tough decisions to modify on how we're executing, how we're rolling out education to still be able to pay the teachers what they need to compete against with our neighboring counties, being able to pay the parapros, which means there's going to be some challenging reflections inside of our $500 million budget that we have to take care of so that we can pay our staff and get our teachers up to the pay that they deserve. So again, that's staffing, that's the funding. And then the last thing is facilities. It's been over half a century since we built a new high school.
It's amazing to me, to be honest with you. I've been here about 18, 19 years, and I never thought about it. But when the subject has been brought up here in the last several years, I'm wondering, wow, that is an amazing thing, to be honest with you. That's been so long.
Yeah. So
with the growth that's going
facilities.
on.
Yeah, exactly. We have an amazing police chief inside the city of Fort Walton Beach. Chief Robert Bage does a lot of amazing things in the community, but he has said this both publicly many a times as well as privately, that if he would have seen some of the conditions of the schools before he took the job, while coming up here from down in Miami, he would have been very hesitant on taking the job because of the condition of our school facilities. I want to propose using a school board approved facilities master plan. So let me unpack what that means a little bit. Having a school board approved master plan means you're going through a workshop process where you're continuing to include workforce development. You're getting your economic development. You're getting your chamber of commerces. You're getting your residents. You're getting your different key stakeholders from different cultures and different backgrounds to help build what that facility master plan looks like, as well as using our current oversight sales tax committee that is overseeing some of these sales tax projects, but using that oversight as well to help build really the buy-in, David, getting these different key stakeholders to buy into our facilities master plan so that when we know from present day to 50 years from now, 20 years from now, 5 years from now, we can track what we're doing, but that plan was helped built and continuing to be sustained with the accountability and the oversight of your residents, of your chamber of commerces, of you're going through the quarterly workshop process to track and see where we're at with your DoD agencies so that we can get that buy-in. Because here's the thing,
Yes.
The sales tax referendum passed in November of 2020, 55 to 45 in favor of. To continue to get that funding and to continue to build the trust inside of our community that is the money being stewarded and used appropriately, and not suggesting, David, that we're not using the money appropriately. So I don't want to make it very clear to continue to build the trust and build the buy-in, having that school board approved master plan where we're going through the quarterly workshop process to track where we're at so that we can continue to get that buy-in, because our facilities need improvements drastically. The school district is doing a great job the last couple of years of pouring into some of those redevelopments, the roofs, and building some new cafetoriums and new multi-purpose buildings that will open up some more classrooms and a classroom space. But getting the public vested interest and continuing to get them coming to the quarterly workshops and to help build that school board approved master plan will get their buy-in so that when we ask for that vote in 2030, which is hard to believe, it'll be a very short 6 years from now, throughout the process, our community's been involved. So staffing, the budget, and facilities, David, are our three biggest challenges.
Three wonderful points that or items that you are bringing up. One of my closely related to some of the things we're doing, because that is exactly one of the items that we have brought up to the English language learners leadership. In other words, the English for students of other languages, is ESOL is called, and we've been involved with that through a committee that Okaloosa, actually, the school district actually came out and asked some of us that are out there doing certain things for the youth to offer support or help them understand their cultural differences in the case of the Hispanic community and other nationalities, because there's 1,500 kids that are participating in the English language learners program. 50 different languages represented according to the statistics we were given about a year ago. And most definitely, community support is needed for such things like you're bringing up in the other items that you brought. It's so important to bring people together to help and make things happen. And it's going to take the community outside of the schools, the business community, the nonprofit groups, and everybody to come together and resolve things and help solve challenges. And in this case, the English Language Learners Program, we quickly formed a committee called the ELL Community Connections Committee, composed of people of different backgrounds, including Hispanics, Brazilians, Eastern Europeans, and others. And we've been providing, some support to the school district, also, giving them some input that we get directly from the parents. And one of them is the staffing piece, and increasing the number of interpreters and translators and such. The possibility of them considering, for example, doing what a small district in Mandan, North Dakota did immediately when they found themselves in a similar situation, and they established a paid position that became a liaison to those families, having interviewed the principal and the liaison, both of them, in a similar interview as you and I are doing. They told me how wonderful and it was, and how beneficial it was to have such a position uh, within the school district's administrative section, of being a liaison to those families in the English language program, and language learners program. And so we commend the school district for at least coming out and asking for support. And those kind of things, are just part of the solution, just working together,
Absolutely. And every good organization needs to have a core value of continuous improvement, right? So it's the work's never done. And it's not a critical statement about, any organization or any committee not doing enough. It's just really the simple concept of continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement, yes.
So one thing that you mentioned about that ELL committee is I would love to see the continuous improvement, the collaboration with the school district and that committee on. It really kind of goes back to some of the concerns I mentioned about staffing, as well as this is a good example of how to balance that advocating for not just staff, but also families of that ELL community, because both factions of people have serious concerns and challenges. I'll start with the ELL families. You mentioned over 1,500 students, but as you know, we also have that covers about 50 different backgrounds and languages. So that English language learners covers because we live next to so many federal installations. It is a beautiful place to have multiple backgrounds and different experiences. But both the staff and those families are in a similar situation. They're all in the boat together. They all want to do what's best. They all want to make the quality of life better. But here are some of the challenges, and I'll start with the families. You just moved to the district. Your family knows no English. You enroll into a school, and you get on your first day of school, and you get on the school bus going to school. Nobody on the bus knows your language, or very few do. The bus driver has no idea how to communicate with that language, and you don't know how to communicate with that bus driver. Makes it a very concerning issue. As well as when that young lady or that young man gets to school off the bus, they get into the classroom, first period is started. The teacher's trying to communicate the objectives and the daily expectations. The teacher doesn't understand what the student is communicating. And the student isn't understanding what the teacher's communicating. And both of those factions are in it to win it. They're really wanting to do what's best, but they just have challenges and concerns that create a staffing issue, where that staff is having challenges of not only the day-to-day lift that they're already occurring, but now how to try to figure out to communicate effectively with the student in the classroom, on top of the other behaviors, on top of the other instruction that needs to be delivered. Then you also have the family that struggles with not understanding the instruction and the information as well.
You bet. You bet. I agree with you totally. And yes, those are some of the main issues encountered in this situation, specifically with the ELLs. And again, we commend the district for at least looking for support from the community, because I think we gotta just all work together in helping each other, and especially those of us that have the capabilities to support, in this case, the youth. Bottom line, right? We're helping the children, but more importantly, also we're helping the entire system. In this case, the teachers, with some of that support also, and some needs, even financial, that may have, that we could help with.
That's
Appreciate that comment on the ELL piece. Well, let's we covered a lot of different things. Obviously, a lot of great points that you've made on what you intend to do in helping the future of this district. David, what sets you apart from your opponent? I know you do have an opponent in this race. Can you give us some input on that?
Yeah. What sets me apart, my opponent and I, we went to high school together, friends. But we are currently in a job interview where you would be legislating over 35,000 kids, thousands of staff members. And I want to bring the contrast and the experience of being the only candidate that has a decade of educational leadership experience. I also am the only candidate that has kids, and if elected, will be the only school board member that has kids currently in the system. And why is that important? Why is that important? Every single policy, every single budget decision, every single parent-teacher conference, when you combine that educational leadership experience with being a parent, every single decision made is made with the weighing out of the scales of how to best and advocate for staff and how to best and advocate for our parents and students and families. So that's the contrast, the major contrast that between me and my opponent is having that educational leadership experience for over a decade, and also too being a parent, and if elected, the school board member that only school board member that has kids currently in the system.
David, what are your thoughts on the state's voucher program? And is there a distinction between what you think about this or what you feel about it and maybe your opponent's view on this?
Yes, I want to be very direct. The contrast between me and my opponent is I fully support, Governor DeSantis and our state delegation that includes Representative Maney and Senator Trumbull and those our local state delegation that has supported legislation and has created legislation to give families of all backgrounds, of all communities, the empowerment dollars, the school voucher dollars to go to a school that they think is best for the values of them and their families. So for an example, whether it's a new private school that was just recently created that starts summer camps now as we speak and is starting their first school year with some state-of-the-art flight simulator programs where you would use to get the same kind of programs you would use to get your pilot's license, or if it's a very traditional, long-standing staple educational institution in our community like Rocky Bayou Christian School, or if it's Niceville High School or Crestview. I fully support school choice and giving families the opportunities to take their kids, to take their grandkids, and again, of all economic statuses. When you get that money, you can take that money and go to those different institutions that you think is best for the values of you and your family. And if that's Niceville High School, Crestview High School, or Fort Walton Beach High School, awesome. But if there's other programs that are in our educational community, those also too need to be maximized so that we can create even more access for our students to have 100% of our students have marketable skill sets so that we can be the number one county in the country in career readiness. Also, too, a contrast, like I mentioned before, I decided not to renew my contract that ended in June 30th. Making this campaign and this candidacy my family and my full-time job. My opponent has some commendable things, owns and operates multiple restaurants, sits on the statewide historic committee on the Mid-Bay Bridge Authority. But again, I have not renewed my contract to be a principal, so I can focus on this full time. Also, too, again, submitting my irrevocable letter of resignation that's effective in November on the city council, so I can focus on this. And that's also required by law, by the way, that I would be my only focus, my main focus professionally would be on this position. So those are a couple of the major contrasts that I think is important for the voter to understand and to be educated on, because we are both good guys. We are both great people, but we are also in a job interview for 35,000 kids and thousands of staff. And being the only candidate that brings that educational leadership experience, being the only candidate that's a parent, and being able to balance and weigh that out to best advocate for our staff and to best advocate for our families and students.
All right. Thank you very much, David. Before I ask you for some final words here, I want to show you your website here and invite everyone that wants to learn more about what David Schmidt is all about, his platform and what he wants to advocate for or fight for within the school district. And we invite you to go to his website. Go ahead and say the website, David, as I'm showing it over here with the Zoom capabilities of share. Go ahead.
Oh, all right.
Yes, how to
Yes,
get a
David,
hold of you if anybody wants to get a hold of you.
get a hold of me in multiple ways. Like David mentioned, the website is davidschmidt2024.com. And on that website, you'll also see my cell phone number. So another way of getting a hold of me is 850-685-0631. You can call, you can text, we can set up a meeting to meet for coffee, or we can meet over the phone, whatever's convenient for you. But I highly encourage, as you are submitting your ballot, whether it's on your coffee table or you're waiting until August the 20th, please reach out to me as you do your homework. And I'm very accessible through my cell phone, through my website. You can email me, whatever's most convenient for you, because this is an extremely important race where we can work together to be the #1 school district in the country in career readiness. So I'd love for you to be able to access and communicate so that we can better understand and better learn what the issues are.
Standing, David, and we also want to invite anyone that's out there watching this that on the 14th of August, Conexión Media Group is going to be hosting a meet and greet the candidates networking social. We are going to be doing this at the El Paso restaurant in Mariester. It's going to be 14 August from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. And we have a slate of great special guests, including David Schmidt and some of the candidates that are running for the county commission also. So please contact us via conexionflorida@gmail.com if you would like to join us at that activity. It is open to the public. However, obviously, we do have a limit as to the number of people that we can put into the restaurant. Hopefully, it'll be full. And we highly encourage anyone that wants to learn more about these candidates to come out and enjoy themselves with some good food. We're going to be networking, obviously, so allow for people to talk directly to the candidates and also hear from them for several minutes that we're going to give on the floor to each of them as thanks for allowing us to interview them and also to be a conduit to the growing Hispanic and multicultural audiences that we try to focus on. And we want to thank David Schmidt. But before I close, I want to give you some final words. If you would like to say some final words to anyone out there that has not decided and or is interested in voting this coming 20th of August, David.
Yes. Again, please reach out to me. Again, the cell phone number is 850-685-0631. My email address is me@davidschmidt.me. It's very important that, we increase the voter turnout and the voter engagement. It's very important that our community stays involved. But as you're staying involved and going through the civic process, the future of our education that this election brings is extremely important to myself, extremely important to my family, and extremely important in this community that I was born and raised in. And I want to bring my past performance and bring my experience in educational leadership, my 7 years and 7 months experience in public service, pushing the vibrancy and pushing the opportunities and working with key stakeholders inside the city of Fort Walton Beach, and pushing my experience of being a parent and taking that past performance into one and accelerating our very unique and beautiful Okaloosa County School District to best advocate for our staff, to best advocate for our students, and to best advocate for our families and businesses, so that, again, that we can work together to be the #1 school district in the country, David, in career readiness by 2030. What a message that we can send to our country and to our employers and to our families that are looking either to stay here, that have been here for multiple generations, or that are looking to relocate and move to this beautiful community, of us taking the message to them of saying, we can prove and we can show that we are the #1 school district in the country in career readiness. Again, I think our families deserve that. I think our staff deserves that, because what we're talking about is career readiness is really just another word for what is your purpose, what is your next step in life. And working with students in education for many years that don't have hope or that have lost purpose, unfortunately, not everybody is dedicated and focused on that certain traditional path. I want to work alongside the residents of Fort Walton Beach and the residents of Okaloosa County and the residents of all the municipalities, my wife from Crestview and Niceville, Laurel Hill, and Baker, so that we can give our students even more purpose. The data that I mentioned before, about 3% of students graduating and going off to our technical colleges, working together to move that needle so that our employers, our industries, and our dining room tables, our families can have that support, so that they can afford to live in some of these homes that we have in our county, so they can afford to have a future and a prosperous opportunities so that their family and their family tree will forever be impacted. So I'll be honored to have your support. I would be honored to have your vote. Early voting is on August the 10th through August 17th. Election day is on August 20th. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I'd be honored to have your support and your vote.
Thank you very much, David, for being with us. Keep up the great work on behalf of the youth of the region. Keep up the great work on behalf of the community at large. And I know you're going to be working very, very hard in the next couple, like you have already in the next 4 weeks. So that on the 20th of August, it'll pay off for you. And we wish you the best in that. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, David. I appreciate you having this conversation, this platform, and thanks for everything that you do inside of your works and services. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. This has been a special edition of Making Connections, the interview show, interview with school board candidate David Schmidt. We will see you on the next one. Have a great one, and may God bless you and protect you.
Do you want to advertise to thousands of Hispanics and non-Hispanics in Northwest Florida, and Southern Alabama?
¿Quieres promover tu empresa y producto a miles de hispanos y no hispanos?
Connection is your most cost-efficient way to do so.
Conexión es tu solución.
We are the largest English and Spanish publication in our region. Our primary mission is to inform, guide, and educate our readers via interesting content.
Somos la publicación mensual en español y en inglés de la más grande distribución en toda la región. Además de las 5,000 copias en papel, tenemos activas las redes sociales, incluyendo Facebook, Twitter e Instagram, y también por Internet.
Conexión is your bridge to connect you to the growing Hispanic market in the region. Call us.
Llámanos.